there's an article here in the Telegraph saying Benny Hill was born 100 years ago today. What do 3 generations make of him now? So what they're doing is they're whipping up an article about Benny Hill. And can you guess the sort of attitudes you're going to find from a post-Benny Hill's generation? Well, I'll leave you guessing while I tell you that I'm Grannyopteryx. I'm interrupting to remind you to click like and to subscribe and share. Also, I'm constantly being told that YouTube removes subscriptions, so please click the notification bell and check that you really are subscribed. All the links to my other channels are in the description, including links to donation sites. I'm always grateful, of course, for donations, but simply clicking like is the best thing you can do for this video and my channel generally. Thank you. All right, so look at this photograph. It shows Benny Hill with a conspiratorial leer on his face as he is carrying, it's obviously a fireman, and he's carrying a young woman to safety, but getting a bit of a thrill out of it as well. If you look at that picture, you see the situation is consensual. I think that's the most important thing about the Benny Hill jokes. They are all consensual. In most cases, the girls are just leading him along and he ends up taking pratfalls over it because they're making fun of him. They are using their youth and beauty and feminine charms, of which they are fully aware, to make a fool of the little men who are always trying to chase them and never quite making it. It's a joke on him, not on the women. Most of it is very funny. Sometimes it's not funny. That's what happens in comedy. Sometimes a joke just doesn't work. But saying that he's unacceptable simply because a couple of jokes don't work, that doesn't make any sense. But where do we get sense in this modern environment? The sketch show, famous for slapstick and scantily clad women, is returning to British television this Christmas. After the... Now, just a minute, this Christmas, is this really very old? I don't see, there's no date on here. Perhaps it meant the Christmas just gone, I'm sorry, but I just happened on this article. Maybe it's the upcoming Christmas, though. After the Freeview channel, That's TV, brought the rights to the episodes amid rumours of interest from Netflix. But will it stand the test of time in the Me Too era? 3 writers of different ages watch with fresh eyes. Okay, so sit on the edge of your seats, people. We're going to hear some opinions about Benny Hill. This is Michael Hogan. As a schoolboy, the slapsticks and silliness tickled me. Right. Benny Hill was a big deal in my hometown. And not... okay, so apparently this guy says, what's his name? Michael Hogan, that Hill had a disabled friend in a care home, which he often visited. I was aware of his celebrity status. He used to come and visit this disabled friend and take him out in the wheelchair every so often. Oh, regularly, it says here. Sounds like a nice man. And, oh, God, crikey, Frasier, the girl who played Niles in Amorata, I've forgotten her name. She was a Hill's angel, and she said he was incredibly helpful and respectful. And she really liked him. So he says, when I finally watched my first episode in the mid-70s, I found it hard to reconcile the shy, sheepish man who pushed a wheelchair along the seafront with the larger-than-life figure that he saw on his television. To my schoolboy eyes, it didn't seem terribly different to other sketch comedies of the era. I knew there were gags I wasn't getting, double entendre which flew over my bowl-cutted head. It was the slapstick, wordplay and silliness that tickled me. Will I be tuning in to its Christmas comeback? Possibly, when my own children are safely tucked up in bed, and only then to marvel at what once passed for primetime entertainment. I'd rather remember him as the devoted friend pushing a wheelchair. So this is a man who used to enjoy it as a schoolboy, thought it was funny, and now is prepared to lock his kids away when it comes on the screen and sit there being moral about it. Michael Hogan, you're a hypocrite. OK, let's go on with the next one. Guy Kelly. It was a different time, but let's hope they've hired an editor. So censorship here. Yeah. He understands it was a different time, but now we've got to edit stuff out of it. I just want to point something out. The generation who grew up with Benny Hill, have they all turned into a crowd of sex monsters? No. I'll tell you who do appear to have turned into sex monsters. People who don't watch stuff like Benny Hill, like the Rotherham grooming gangs. I'll bet you they considered Benny Hill terribly immoral. That's just my guess, though. Maybe they watched it in secret at night. OK, so he's giving his entire life history here, which I'm not interested in. Yesterday, but in fear and dread, yesterday, as I opened YouTube and shakily typed in the words, The Benny Hill Show, I found myself gulping, shrinking the window and preparing to blurt the words, they asked me to watch it, at any and every bypasser. You bloody idiot. Oh, well, I don't know. Looking at that face, the words soy and boys suddenly popped into my mind. I can't think why. Anyway, right. Let's carry on. To my generation, he's simply that man who resembled Adam Bolton and scampered about honking the breasts of aghast, scantily clad young women to a jaunty saxophone tune. As a matter of fact, most of the women weren't aghast, were they? They were, fully enjoying the power they had. Still, I holstered my standard issue millennial cancellation gun and gave him the benefit of the doubt. The first sketch he saw hinged on the punchline that women start putting on weight as soon as they got married. The second, a Roy Orbison parody, featured a giddy impression of Jimmy Savile. And in the third, Hill blacked up. Now, this is the worst thing you can do, blacking up. Do you think he was actually making fun of... I don't know what sketch he was talking about, but... do you think he was making fun of black people or of the attitude other people might have had to black people? It doesn't seem to me like Benny Hill was in any way malicious about anything, from what I've read about him. I could be wrong. If somebody can find some proof that he was a malicious man, but I didn't see anything malicious in any of the sketches I've seen of his. Right. Then good silent gag about bank robbery. He's being generous here, isn't he? This Guy Kelly. And then one set in a library. Have you got a book called Men, the Superior Sex? The customer asks. You'll find it over there, the female librarian replies, under fiction. I think we generously call that hit and miss. If they insist on resurrecting it, let's hope they've hired an editor. No, 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 no. Let's hope they edit you. You know, the way he talks, you'd think this was the worst thing that could happen to anybody to watch something like this. And as I said, the people who grew up with that were generally more respectful of women than they are now. The sort of grief that J.K. Rowling is getting for being a woman and talking about trans women as not really women, and others who've said the same thing. The sort of thing they're getting from the new woke generation, the people who watch Benny Hill wouldn't dream of talking to a woman like that. Alice Hall. This has not aged well. Oh. Yeah, the trouble when somebody gets up on a high horse and doesn't know how to ride is that they have a problem climbing down from it. If, like me, you've never heard of Benny Hill, oh, for goodness sake. All right. The first episode I found, The Oddball Club Cabaret, had a straightforward premise. To the backdrop of a tinkly theme tune, men encounter a series of situations where they are portrayed as ill-fated fools, mostly at the expense of glamorous women in skimpy swimwear. In another, The Loser, Benny plays an unlucky man who fails at a series of jobs before discovering a treasure chest that solves his woes. I don't see anything. Well, from the way she's describing that, sounds like she halfway thinks that's a good idea. Now, the unsolicited touching, ogling and sexism are obviously abhorrent. Not in that Benny Hill universe. As far as I remember, in that Benny Hill universe, the ogling is invited by the women. And the touching, I don't know about the touching. I don't remember that much. And I certainly don't remember the women being disturbed by it. In that universe, anyone with any sense knows that the Benny Hill universe is not the real world. I was reminded of Robin Thicke's Blurred Lines music video, where a naked Emily Ratvajovsky, oh dear, I'm sorry about that, Ratvajovsky, sorry, danced around him. She wasn't naked, she was wearing underwear. And then Thicke later admitted he'd wanted to make a Benny Hill type video, something fun. Yeah, but it wasn't a Benny Hill type video. That went hideously wrong. And apparently, I read about this. Robin Thicke actually came up behind her and groped her during the filming. That wasn't very nice. But he hadn't told her he was going to do it. He hadn't asked for her permission. Not that she'd have given him permission. So that's this Robin Thicke is not Benny Hill. He's of the generation that would say, no, Benny Hill's a bad thing. And yet he'd do this. I could hardly watch the scene. Oh, you poor thing. Oh, you know how sorry I am for you. You were forced to watch a Benny Hill sketch. Oh, dear. Ah, look at those sweet, innocent eyes. Let's carry on. I could hardly watch the scene where Benny, clad in a postman's outfit, prods a woman's chest to the backdrop of a honk sound. And what was the woman doing? In most Benny Hill sketches that I've ever seen, either she's showing off because of the honk sound, or she wallops him and stalks off. As for the returning theme of the senile nagging wife versus the desirable younger girl, it has not aged well. Well, I don't know. Might not have been right. I didn't see it, so I can't say. But as I said, in any comedy, there's always going to be either jokes that you don't appreciate or jokes that you don't understand, and they just miss you. this is not a matter of ageing. I've seen more contemporary comedians who just turn my stomach. Benny Hill doesn't do that. Those who grew up with the show will no doubt have fond memories of watching it. Perhaps the rickety camera work and dodgy jumps between the scenes adds to the nostalgia. I'm aware the humour is considered to be of its time, but the only explanation I can reach for is how this show was such a hit, is that back then there were only 3 TV channels. No. The fact that we've got po-faced critics like you here, that is not ageing well either. All right, well, that's the article on Benny Hill. I'm going to look up some sketches on YouTube, clean my brain from people like Alice Hall. Until next time.